Welcome back to Plus Cafe. So in our previous lessons, we're learning about the basic objects and how to draw and practice them. So in this lesson, we are going to look at how to modify and edit these objects that you've learned. Okay, so let's get started. So in our previous, this was the drawing that we had for our assignment. Okay, so let's go to the model space. So you realize that we made some mistakes when we were trying to repeat the drawing. Okay, so one thing you do when you make mistakes is that you either erase them. Okay, you erase them or you delete them completely. So for our first edit or modify tool, we want to look at the erase tool. So for your first step, you come to the command line, like with the other commands. Type erase. As usual, AutoDesk gives you some suggestions. So that's all. You just press spacebar. So if you look in the command line, it says select objects. Select object. So you select any object that you want to erase. Okay. So for me, I want to erase this circle. You realize that it comes like broken lines. It appears like some broken lines. Okay. So you realize that Autodesk says select objects, one object found. Okay, so the object has become selected. Okay, so now Autodesk will ask you again. So take notes. It will ask you again to select objects. Okay, so it will ask you. This is because in case you want to select more than one object, you'll be able to do it. So get used to it. Okay, so since we want to delete only one object, you just press spacebar. You realize that the object has vanished. So you can do this more than twice. Maybe the window we drew, it wasn't nice enough, so you just select them. Press erase. This is another method of erasing them. Or you can just press E on the space bar. Then you select the object you want to erase. Maybe you want to erase the entire interior. Or maybe these square rectangles over here. Just press space bar. You realize that everything has erased completely. Another command we can also consider is the move command. So assuming you place an object somewhere you don't want it to be, you want to move it to another side, you can use the move command. So let's get started with that. So first of all, you type M or move in your command line. You press spacebar. You realize that AutoCAD says select object. Okay, so you select object by placing your mouse pointer over the object. Let's say, for example, I want to move this doorknob to the other side. Okay, so I'll just select the doorknob by just clicking on it. Like the other command, AutoCAD says 1 found, 2 total. Okay. AutoCAD says select objects again. So it will repeat it based on the number of objects you want to select. So right now we've finished selecting the objects you want to move. So we just press spacebar. AutoCAD says specify base point or displacement. Base point or displacement. So you can left click where you want as your base point. Maybe I want the center of this circle as my base point, so I just click, and you can move to where you want to place your new drawing. Okay, so you can move the mouse somewhere else and just need to move it. So let's try this one too. And the other one, you type move, select the object, space bar, you can click anywhere and you move it. That's beautiful. Okay, so assuming you don't want this at all, maybe you saw this and you realize that it wasn't beautiful after all, so you just want to return it back to its position, you can use the undo command, which is over here, as you can see. Or you can use your normal undo shortcut, Control Z, as you can see. It has done it for you. Or you can type U, as you can see, U. So this was something I drew before I started the tutorial. It has undone something. Okay. So like we learned in the previous video, to delete this, I just select them. Now erase. There's also an option to click in the ribbon. The pencil over here is to erase. Those kind of old pencils, you see that there are erasers at the back. If you look at this very closely, you see that there's an eraser at the back of this small pencil, yellow pencil over here. So just click on it. Then you can erase whatever you want to erase. So let's look at another command. You might be familiar with this one. It's the friend of many students. It's one of the favorite commands that many students come across. So for example, you have this building, as I gave in the assignment, the front view of a small building for senior man and senior woman. Okay, so I want to copy maybe the outline of this building to another side, so that I'll use it for the end elevations. Or maybe I just want to copy this whole thing. Okay, so to do that, unlike Excel and Word and all those things that you do Control C, Control V, you can also do that here, but there's another way in which you can copy. You come to your command line and you type CO, C for cat, CO, copy. Just press the space bar. Now AutoCAD says select objects. So I want to copy the outline, so I'll select the outline. You can select as many objects as you want. As you can see. Now, maybe you want to select more, but for the sake of the tutorial, I've selected just this few. So now, AutoCAD still says select objects. Since you are done with selecting, just press your space bar. Now AutoCAD says specify base point. Now the base point is the reference point from which you are copying from. Okay, the base point of your drawing. So let's see, I want this end to be my base point. Now AutoCAD says specify second point. So for that one, you can enter a distance, maybe 10,000 or 5,000 or something, or you can move it yourself. You can do it by visual inspection. So when you are done with your command, you realize that there's still more options. You can still copy more. Maybe I want to copy it twice. You are done. Okay, so when you are done, you just press your space bar, then you are done copying. So I've copied the exact outline of my drawing. Maybe I want to copy the windows too as well. Let's see. So the same procedure. CO, then space bar, then select what you want to do. Okay, before that, I want to show you two types of selecting an object. Okay, so there are two ways in which you can select an object. You can either click one side, then drag it to cover the whole object. Now this is what you call a window selection. As you can see, it selected the object within the box that I just drew. Okay, let's try it again. So you click one side of the drawing. I want to select the whole drawing. Then you drag it to the other end. So it's like a window. Inside the window, it has selected all the things inside the view of what I've dragged. Okay, so as you can see, it has selected. And there's another method of selecting objects. Okay, so that one will be from the right hand side. The first one we did it from the left hand side. So this one is from the right hand side. You see a green, as you can see, you don't drag it, you just click it once and you move your mouse pointer. Okay, as you can see. So for this one, you see that it has selected only an aspect of the drawing. So this is what we call a fence selection. Okay, fence selection. So as you move it, anything that the line touches, it selects it. Okay, anything that the line touches, it selects it. So maybe I want to, let's go back to our copy command. So I want to copy the whole window. Okay, so I can even do a window. You can even decide to use a window selection or a fence selection. But when I use the fence selection to copy the door as well, so let's just use the window selection to just copy our window for us. You can see our window is within the area, the blue portion. So just click on the screen. So as usual, we use our copy command CO and press space. Then you come to your base point. I want it to be here at exactly the same position, so I just click it. Then I'll come to my new position. I want it to be exactly here. Then I'm done with my window. Maybe I want to copy this window to another side, another drawing, maybe this drawing. Let's repeat. So for this one, you can even use the fence selection. So I've selected it. So CO, again, copy. Press on your space bar, you click your base point, then to your new point. So we've copied the window. Maybe you want to copy half of the window to another side. So as usual, our fence selection, copy. Okay, so you select your base point. You can click anywhere as your base point. Then by visual inspection, you move it. As you can see, isn't that beautiful? So we are done with copy. Okay, so to undo all this, as I said earlier, Control Z, Control key and Z, or you can press U, undo. U again, undo it, repeat it several times. So it has undone what we've already drawn. Okay. So there's another part of the copy command that we can consider in this tutorial. Okay, so let's select our drawing. So fence select. As you can see the fence has crossed this one and this one has copied it as well. So we don't need that. So you can either press on your shift key, then select on what you don't need in your drawing. Then you're done. Maybe you want to copy it at regular intervals. Okay, so you press your CO, copy. You specify your base point. Okay, so let me see this here. Maybe I want to copy 5 of this at 5,000 meter intervals. Okay, so what you do is that you either click array in the command line or you type A and your space bar. You realize AutoCAD says enter the number of items to array. So maybe I want to array as much as you can, any number at all, it will do it for you. So let's say 20 of these, 20 items. So let's zoom out. You see 20 of your buildings, as you can see. So let me say 5,000 at 5,000 meter intervals. So 5,000. So where it says specify second point, you can either do it by visual inspection or you can enter something. 5,000. So as you can see, so 5,000 is very small. So this is what happened. It's very close together. So I can press undo and my command is back. I can try it again. 5,000 was too small. So 20. Okay, so let's try 10,000. So we are done. So that's copy array. it has copied it at regular intervals, as you can see. This is very useful where the building plans might be the same layout, but just a few things will be changing them. So maybe you want to use the same template throughout, you can use the copy array to array them. For those of you who have seen estate buildings before, most of them look similar. So people normally use the copy array command to do those things, to prepare their plans and their deviations and all those stuff. So you can either delete them, erase. I hope you remember the erase command. So friends, select, and I'll press my erase command over here, or I'll type erase, any of the one you need. Another command you want to learn is the rotate command. The rotate command. So you can guess how we will go about it. So as usual, just come to your command line, type R. AutoCAD gives you options that you can, as you can see, you've seen the rotate commands over there. We just click on it. So always, your mind must be always been on the command line. You have to always look at the command line. So you see select objects. So I want to select the plan of the building I drew earlier. This is the plan for the chamber and hall for senior man and senior boss chick. Okay, so let's select it. So you selected it. So AutoCAD gives you room to select more objects, but for now we want to only select this plan. Okay, so you press your space bar. So AutoCAD says specify base point. Now the base point is the point at which the object will rotate. Okay, is the point at which the object will rotate. So you specify anywhere you want to rotate it. So let's choose this side. Now AutoCAD says specify rotation angle or copy or reference. So you can specify your rotation angle, as you can see. So as you move further away from the object, you realize that it becomes smoother and smoother. But when you go closer, it's less smooth. You move away from it. If you want to do it by visual inspection. So I want to rotate it. If you like, you can even also state the angle you want to rotate it at. So let's say 270 degrees. So it has rotated the plan as 270 degrees. Also, the rotation command also gives you opportunity to also copy it as you rotate. So let's try that. So escape is your best friend if you make a mistake. We rotate. Then let's select our base point. Maybe I want to copy it in this direction. The buildings, let's say the buildings are in this direction. Okay, they are this way. So you can just click on copy. So you specify your angle. For this time, let's say 180 or any angle you like. Maybe I want to copy it this way. So by visual inspection, I just click here. So it has copied it. So that's for rotation. Okay, so there are other options that you can consider. So in your own time, you can experiment with the other options. And like the other commands too, you can look inside the ribbon. There's a rotate command here. You can click on it and it follows the same procedure as I stated earlier.
Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking at is arrays. When we talk about arrays, an array is simply another series of a particular item. So we have 3 types of array we can talk about. I'll be taking you through the 3 of them. The first one I would like to talk about is the polar array. Like you are thinking, if you talk about something polar, it has to do with the polar coordinate system. So for instance, let's talk about this, what we have on the screen right now. I'm taking this circle to be a circular table, and I have this objective I want to achieve. This is a seat. I want to arrange this seat around this circular table. Okay, so I'm going to use the polar array command. So I type in array, and the command line asks me to select objects. The object I desire to arrange around this table is the chair here. So I'm going to select the chair and hit enter. Upon hitting enter, we can see rectangular, path, and polar. Like I told you, I wanted us to look at the polar first, so I'll select polar. After selecting polar, AutoCAD asks me to specify the center point. Polar array is about a central point. Okay, so I'm going to be using this cool shortcut. I'll hold down the shift key and right click anywhere on the screen that's within my working area, and then I'm going to click center, and the center will allow me to click at the center of this circle. And as you can see, I've arranged this chair all around the circular table. Now let's look at some modifications you can do to your array having arranged this around the table. Let's say I desire to arrange this just 180 degrees. I don't want the full 360 degrees. I can come up here. This fill area specifies the angle between the very first item and then the very last item. So we are taking this to be the first item and this to be the last item again. So the angle between this point and this point again is 360. So if I should change this angle to 180, you would see that there will be a modification to my arrangement. I'm going to arrange it all around just 180 degrees, and you can see the remaining 180 degrees is not occupied by anything. Now the between just tells you the distance between successive items. So there's this very first item and this item, the angle. If I talk of that distance, I'm talking of the angle distance. Okay, so if I change this to, let's say, 30 degrees, it will change my arrangement. You see, it has reduced this less than the 180 degrees to 150 degrees because the number of items I had specified is 6. The number of items is limited, and if my items are 6 and I'm saying the distance, the angle distance between each of them is 30 degrees, and you take 30, that means you're going to just have 150. You know, if you have 6 items, the distance you have between them will be 5. So 30 times 5 will be 150. So the other things I can edit about this is also the rows. As you can see here, the rows, I can specify more than one. So in that case, I can have multiple of this created behind this. So when I change this to 3, you will see that I'll have another arrangement of these chairs behind that. And I can specify the distance between successive rows, the distance between this first row and then the second row. I can change this distance to, let's say, 2000. When I change it, you will see it reflects here. Okay, and then the very last thing I want to talk about before I talk about the levels is the total. Total is about the distance between the very first row and then the very last row. If I change this total to 6000, you will see that my 2000, which is between the first, the second, the third rows, will not change. But then there will be a modification between the first and then the last row. So let me do that, and then you can see that nothing has changed about my original arrangement. It's just that the very first distance between the first and then the last has to be modified and adjusted to fit in to the total arrangement of the very first row and then the last row. Okay, so the very last thing I want to talk about with polar array is the levels. With the levels, it's about elevation in 3D. So I would have to be looking at this in 3D for us to really appreciate this well. So I'm going to be looking at this from the top. Let me go to home so that we can look at it in 3D. Now I have my items already selected. So let me change the level to 3 and let's see what happens. Okay, something has happened, but you can't see it because the distance we have between them is 1. 1 in a millimeter is so small. So I'm going to change this to, let's say, 3000. And you can see that we have multiples of this created on top of it. And if you look at it in this way, you can see that we have multiples of it created in 3D. Something you can appreciate more if you can use this orbit command and move around. You can appreciate this more. So this is just maybe you want to create a duplicate of these items in along an elevation. And with these two, you can define the distance between them. This work is a constant distance. So the between is between the very ground one and then the second one. This can even be applied in terms of, we are talking about first floor, second floor, third floor, we can apply it. And the total here, see the total bit of the row and then the total of the levels is the same total. It just speaks about the distance between the very first set of items and then the very last set of items. Okay, so the next type of array to talk about now is called the rectangular array. The rectangular array. So let's take this for instance. This is a single chair. Let's say this area here is the front of a church. Is the front of a church, and we want these chairs to be arranged in a rectangular manner all the way up here. So I'm still going to type the array command, array, and I hit enter. And I select the object, which is this chair, and I hit enter. Then I'm going to specify rectangular array. Once I specify rectangular array, you can see that we have these chairs arranged. We have how many rows? We have how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 columns. And how many rows? 1, 2, 3. And I can change the direction by holding this and simply change the direction of arrangement of the chairs. When I decide to hold this, I can change the direction whether up or down, and you can just see that. And I can use this to extend the number of chairs that I have in this direction. Okay, and I can also use this to extend the number of chairs I have in the backward direction. Now if I don't want to use that grip one, I want to be more accurate, I can simply select them and come down here like we did for the polar array. And I'm just coming to specify. When you're talking of the columns is the vertical counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to change it to 8. So once I change this to 8, you will see that the number will be extended. Now this between here is the distance between the first, the second, the third. Is that constant distance between successive columns. So let's say I decide to change this to 6,000. If I change it, you can see it modified here. So this is more or less of a more accurate way of doing it, because if I'm using just this grip here to be modifying it, I won't be able to control the distance that much. But with this, I can control the constant distance between successive columns. And this total again is speaking about the distance between the very first column and then the very last column. The same applies when you come to the row. This row number here, we have 5. Specify the number of rows we have. You know, the rows are the horizontal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can equally change this to let's say 3, and that will change the number of rows I have to 3. And the distance between them is the distance between successive rows. This is the first row, the second, the third. So the between two, let's say I decide to change this to, let's say 4,000. If I change it, you can see that the difference reflected. Oh, 4,000 is not too good. Let me change that to 9,000. Okay. Alright, so you can see this. And then the total again is speaking about the distance between the very first row and then the very last row. So you can see that. And talking about the levels again, like I talked about in the polar array, it's about the elevation. The levels here will tell you the number of items we have. So 1 means we only have something like ground floor. 3 will mean we have ground floor, we have first floor, we have second floor. And the between is the distance between successive floors. The total will be telling us the distance between the very first floor and the very last floor. I'm trying to relate this to a floor, to something you easily can see around, so you can really appreciate it. Okay, so next, so that's just about the rectangular array. So okay, now with the part array works with, if we talk about path, it's just like the path as we are talking about, but it's a well-defined path. So the path could be a straight line, it could be an arc. So I'm going to use this semicircle as a path, and I'm going to use it to demonstrate how we can use the path array. So again, I'm going to type in the array command, array, and I hit enter. Then the object I'm interested in duplicating here is this building plan. So I'm going to do a selection around this, and I hit enter. Then AutoCAD is asking me to specify the type of array I want to use. In this case, I want to use the path array, so I'll select path. And the next question is, I'm supposed to select the path along which I want to duplicate this building. So the part I'm interested in here is the semicircle. The semicircle. So I'll select this semicircle, and as you can see, I have this house plan arranged along this path. And one cool thing about this is it won't arrange the objects beyond the extension of the path. So you can see, you'll be asking me, why is it that we don't have another of this at the end here? That's because the distance from the very last item to the end here, it's less than the distance between the successive items. So AutoCAD won't arrange this object beyond the length of the path. Okay, so let's look at the editing of the path arrays too. I will just select one of these, and then I have all the items here. Now the items defined here just specify the number of items. AutoCAD is not allowing me to access them because the distance I have between the items will define the number of items I can have, because my path is limited. Starting from here to this end. AutoCAD is allowing me to just specify the distance between the items in this particular category. So I can change this distance to 3000, and that will change the number of items I have. Okay, I change it to 3000, sorry, and that will change the number of items I have. Okay, so let me just bring it back to 9000. All right, so the next one is the rows. Likewise, like we spoke about in the polar and then the rectangular array, you can create multiple rows for the path arrays too. So if I decide to make these three, I'm going to have 3 rows of this. Just see, you can see that we have 3 rows of this building arranged. So this is the first row, the second row, and then the third row. This between here again is telling us the distance between the very first row and the second row and then the third row. Is that successive distance, a constant distance. The total is telling us the distance between the very first row and then the very last row. And when you come to the levels again, the levels is just telling us the elevation, like I was speaking about in the rectangular array. So when I enter something like 4, and I decide to look at this using this, you can see that you won't see this. Okay, like I said once, 1 millimeter you can't appreciate, but let me make this 6000, and you can appreciate this more if I make it 6000. You can see that we have multiples of it created on top of it, and because we have 4 levels, so the distance between this first one and the second one, that's the between. So this is the distance between this guy and this guy is 6000, this guy and this guy is 6000, and the total is going to tell us the total distance between them from the very ground to the very last one. So let me enter 9000 and see what happens. You see it has restricted it. Okay, so that's just about the polar array, the rectangular array, and then the path array. Thank you for your time.